Welcome back to the Sci-Fi Wire live stage right here at New York City Comic-Con 2018. How's everybody doing out here? You guys having a good con? Yeah, man. In the first hour of it, I hope you've acquired all your merch and everything. I'm Adam Swiderski, editor-in-chief of Sci-Fi Wire, and I am here on stage with someone who, for those of us who appreciate comic books, really needs no introduction, but I'm going to go ahead and do it anyway. Dave Gibbons, one of the creators behind Watchmen. Hands down, one of the most influential graphic novels of all time. Really big for me as a fan to be here talking to you, so thanks for joining us.
You're very welcome. Pleasure to be here in New York, as always.
Yeah. So let's talk about, it's a big time for Watchmen fans. There's big things brewing with the upcoming HBO series. Tell us everything that happens to every character in full detail.
Good. Well, I was hoping you'd ask me that, because then I would just say, I'm afraid I have no comment.
It's always good to be able to pull out the no comment. Yeah. That's good.
No, I mean, I don't know very much. And what I do know, I probably shouldn't say too much about. I have read the screenplay for the pilot episode, and it absolutely blew me away. It came in at a very unexpected angle, felt very fresh, felt Watchmen, but moved on. And I'm really, really thrilled about it. I've been in reasonably close contact with Damon Lindelof, who absolutely gets Watchmen. He absolutely is the #1 fan. And I'm hoping also to see him next week. So if this interview was next week, I'd probably be able to tell you quite a bit more.
Curses. No, but so we all know by now, I think the news has been out there, that the series is not going to be telling the story or retelling the story from the graphic novel. When you first heard that, was that something that excited you, that there was going to be new stories told in this world, or was it something like, well, wait a minute, what about the story that we told?
Well, you know, I think with the graphic novel of Watchmen, Alan and I said everything we had to say about those characters at that particular time. And I've never been a great supporter of prequels and sequels. In a way, I'd rather see, although there have been some really wonderful creators working on those projects that DC has done, I'd rather see fresh approaches and new approaches. And, you know, Watchmen was always conceived as a graphic novel, a beginning, a middle, and an end, and that was it. And my feeling is that things that retread that ground tend to dilute it rather than expand it. However, with the HBO series, it doesn't attempt to do any of those things. Again, I have to be careful what I say, but it is a really fresh look at it. It felt new to me. It felt exciting. It felt of today rather than of the 80s.
So given that we're branching out into new territory, what are the characteristics that you think define that Watchmen feel? If it's not treating with the same story, you know, obviously without getting into specifics, but
sure,
what vibe is there that kind of gets that Watchmen feeling across?
Well, I mean, I think the central question that we asked with Watchmen back in the day when Alan and I did it is, if superheroes were real, what would they really be like? And if we lived in a world where there were superheroes, what would that world be like? I mean, in all of the Superman stories, almost, that have ever been told, the fact that there's this amazing godlike creature living amongst men has kind of been taken for granted and hasn't really made any difference to the world. It's just our world with Superman in it. A world that really had Superman in it, just as a world that really had Dr. Manhattan in it, would be a very different place. And so it's quite interesting to project and let that roll on and see, well, what would that world be like after 10 years? What would that world be like after 20 years? You know, when you drop a stone in a pond, the ripples go out and they change things forever around them. I hope that's not too enigmatic, but that's...
But that fits. I mean, that's fitting. So, I mean, it's been 30 years or over 30 years since Watchmen was first published. A lot has changed about the world. A lot has changed about the place of superheroes in our mythology and in our culture. How do you feel with a new take on this story coming now versus when you were first writing it? Obviously, the way that people look at comic books is completely different, partially due to Watchmen.
Yeah, I mean, I think You know, Alan and I always felt that a TV series, sort of maybe a 12-part, 13-part TV series, would have been a really good way to dramatise Watchmen in a real-life action story. So, in a way, a TV series is an extension of the sort of serial nature of comics and of the way we originally did Watchmen, having it appear episode after episode after episode. But I think if we had had a TV series back in the 80s, it would have been a cult TV series that would have had a pretty small audience at the time and wouldn't have made much impact. But now everybody gets superheroes. Friends of mine who had never read a comic in their life are aware that I'm at the New York Comic Con. You get shows like Big Bang Theory where they talk about Comic-Con and some really fanish things, and the general audience absolutely gets it and is on board for it. And rather than it being a sort of a slightly weird, geeky outlier, it is the centre of popular modern culture. So I think that the audience for a TV show is now a huge audience, and given the kind of subject matter which appears on the streaming TV series, they've been softened up for all sorts of weirdness and all sorts of science fiction notions. So I think this is a really great time to be coming out with it on the TV.
It's great. And what about, I guess, the deconstruction of superheroes and superhero mythology is something that Watchmen is really known for. But that is something, thinking about what these characters mean, is something that's kind of been expanded across the industry now, again, partially inspired by Watchmen when it came out. How do you handle that in an era when superheroes are everywhere versus where it was 30 years ago?
Yeah, well, I mean, I suppose just as we in a comic book ask the questions about the comic book superheroes, nowadays movies and TV can ask the questions about the movie and TV superheroes. I mean, the great thing is, as I say, that everybody gets superheroes. When they hear of Batman, they know that Batman has a bat cave and he's got a bat plane and a Batmobile and he fights the Joker. This is already a given. So just as with Watchmen, we didn't have to introduce the notion of superheroes. Everybody who saw it got it. Nowadays, that's so with the movies, that everybody gets the notion of superheroes and is aware of the conventions of the form and the staple sort of diet of superheroes. And so when it's subverted, they realize it's being subverted and they get a great lot of entertainment from that.
What's it feel like, I guess, to be part of a story that people are still trying to honor and serve over 30 years after you created it? I mean, this is the second version or adaptation of Watchmen that's actually going to make it to the screen, but there have also obviously been multiple attempts. What's that been like for you to see this story that you helped be a part of creating resonate for decades?
Well, I mean, obviously, it's great. You know, I mean, I am a comic fan. I used to dream of coming to New York and being involved in the comic book business. The fact that I succeeded in that, to me, is enough almost. The fact that something that I did is still going and still inspiring people and inspiring adaptations and being talked about and continuing to be in print and selling and selling and selling. To any creator, that's just a wonderful thing. But, you know, as I've said many times, Alan and I didn't set out with that goal in mind. That you'd be mad if you thought, we are now going to do a comic book that will be in print for 30 years and will change the industry. All we did was to do the comic that we wanted to read. You know, we're lifelong comic fans, just wanted to do something that we would like to have read, I think. And it seemed that we came out at the right time, in the right circumstance, and we were very fortunate for that. And you know, I never get, people say to me, do you ever get fed up with talking about Watchmen? Only from the point of view that I have done quite a lot of other stuff, but I'm always very happy to talk about Watchmen, and as a fan, I'm thrilled that the fans still like it after all this time.
And you feel that fans are going to be well served by this show that's coming up? Because Watchmen fans are very diehard about making sure that the comic is respected and seeing that done well.
Yeah, well, I believe it was actually Alan Moore himself who said, I think he said this, you know, that you shouldn't give people what they want, you should give them what they need. And so we've all got an idea of how we think a Watchmen TV series should be. And clearly the straight adaptation from each book becomes one episode. That's a pretty obvious way to do it. What I think is great about what's being done, it's certainly not a way that I expected it would be done. And I think probably it's not a way that most people here would think it would be done. Whether they will like that approach or not is a different matter. But I think if you do something with the right motives and you do it with the right excitement and the right knowledge and awareness of what you're dealing with, then most people can respond to that sort of creation.
Very cool. Just to talk about something not Watchmen for a moment. I know, crazy. Kingsman, are there any plans for any further work with Mark Millar on something around that?
Well, you know, Mark is a very busy man at the moment, on his way to world domination, of course, and he's got this deal with Netflix, and he's spending most of his creative time doing that. I'm not doing so much actual comic book work these days. I do a lot more kind of consulting work, and you know, and I'm involved with various spin-offs. We loved working together. We probably won't do any more Kingsman, and I'm not privy to any of the secrets of Kingsman, but I do read on the internet, as I'm sure most of you have, that there are going to be some more Kingsman movies, and I did even read somewhere, possibly a Kingsman TV series, but that's something that was on the internet, and we all know about that.
All right. Dave Gibbons, thank you so much for joining us. One of the greatest comics creators of all time.
Thank you very much.
Really great having you here. Please stick around. We got a lot more coming from the Sci-Fi Wire live stage. Up next, we have Transformers. Seeing new things from the Bumblebee movie merchandise collection right on this stage. Sci-Fi Wire, hashtag NYCC, hashtag it's a fan thing. More to come.
Hi, I'm Jackie Jennings with Sci-Fi Wire. If you can't get enough of New York Comic Con, go ahead and subscribe to our YouTube channel for news, interviews, cosplay, and so much more. What are you waiting for?